Hey guys, welcome back to DeFiRL, your wormhole from TradFi to DeFi. In today's video, we're going to talk about Malaysia potentially adopting Bitcoin as legal tender.
So sorry guys, we actually filmed this video before Malaysia announced that they actually don't really like the idea of Bitcoin as legal tender, as you can see right here. But you should still watch the video because we go deep into whether getting Bitcoin as legal tender is a good idea in the first place. Then, next week, we will give our response to the news that Malaysia doesn't like Bitcoin as a legal tender. As usual, nothing of what we say in this video should be taken as financial advice. If you actually need financial advice, please speak to a pro.
So disclaimer, we do not own Bitcoin, for one. You want to find out why? We actually made a video on it up in the top right corner. So this latest Bloomberg article, as with many other crypto news portals, right, has highlighted that a minister in Malaysia actually mentioned that crypto should be adopted as legal tender. MJ, I know you delve quite deeply into this topic and I know you have your views on it. Can you tell me what your thoughts on it are, or at least an introduction to the topic?
Yeah, so I don't want to get the name wrong, so I'm just looking at my phone. So the Deputy Minister of the Communications and Multimedia Industry, how can I just quite tag, right? Mr. Zahidi Zainul Abidin essentially, want to propose, right?
Yeah.
That Malaysia consider Bitcoin as legal tender. For those of you who do not know what legal tender means, basically just currency, right? You can use it to trade for goods and services. That is really what's happening.
Okay. Somewhat like what El Salvador is doing and
El Salvador, I think
Miami?
they've taken in an even bigger step, right? It's not only legal tender; it's actually part of their reserves.
Okay.
Right, so they're actually buying Bitcoin and they're even telling people when they buy. So that's a bit more extreme. But yeah, in part they are similar.
Okay. So to decipher this headline, right, what does this actually mean for us as an average Malaysian on the streets? Is it a good sign actually?
So it's definitely a good sign that someone in parliament, right, in politics, straight up says that, okay, he's not like the highest up, right, he's a deputy guy, but, he's proposing something like that. And so this is a sign of change. Now, I also bring a broader point, right, for those of you who are Malaysians, and you kind of follow politics, you know that recently Lim Kit Siang, which is the opposition member, stepping down. Then his son Lim Guan Eng also changing a position to a more backseat role with the chairman role in DAP. Now I say this because there is a trend now in Malaysia that the old guard is stepping down. And once the old guard steps down, new people and new ideas get to, hopefully prosper. So there's a trend now in Malaysia, obviously. Some say late, some say we're on time, doesn't matter. That, crypto is should be more accepted. And so this is definitely a significant step for Malaysia that a member in parliament actually says, yeah, let's consider it as legal tender.
Okay. All right. What would you think is an obstacle that might be faced by this move though? Like, I know this is a proposal, and as with all proposals, it's basically step number 1 of 1,000.
Yeah.
What do you think are some main obstacles that we might face?
The first thing to realize for me is there are 2 institutions that you need to get past in order for this. And yes, it's true, the government, not the Senate, the Parliament will have to vote on things like that to happen. But at the end of the day, they will do it with the heavy consultation of Bank Negara, number 1, especially in the point of legal tender, and number 2, SC. Now, why SC is involved is because at the current state of crypto, especially with Bitcoin and Ethereum, let's talk about those 2, because to me, regulators can't even get their heads around crypto as a whole, let alone just these 2 coins. So let's just talk about these 2 coins as potential legal tenders. The challenge is that both parties both regulatory institutions do not know whose responsibility is it to regulate this. Is it a currency or is it a security, right? So that's the first hurdle. who's actually going to manage this. The second thing is specific to the point of legal tender. This one, I think Bank Negara is going to be quite challenging. Now, they do not, from my own research and talking to people in Bank Negara, they actually do not hate crypto as much as they hate stable coins.
Okay.
Because stable coins is a direct
Threat
competitor.
to the ringgit, huh?
Whereas, the view of the more sympathetic view of someone in Bank Negara would be like, oh, Bitcoin is like digital gold. And then, central banks own gold.
Yeah.
So they are like, we're open, but gold is not exactly legal tender. You can't buy your pan mee with gold. So, but then we are also friendly with gold because we own gold, right? So that's really how I see Bitcoin sitting in Bank Negara's shoes. The second thing, of course, is that it's also not really high up their priority because they're focusing on their CDBCs, right? CBDCs, right? Crypto.
Central bank
digital currencies. And so they probably want that to take precedence in terms of legal tender rather than Bitcoin.
I see. I think one thing to also add upon is that is Bitcoin going to be a successful form of, as you mentioned, like you're not going to be able to use 0.00025 Bitcoin to buy pan mee, right? Because in the next 3 days, it might become 0.00027, for example.
Yeah, I mean, you can watch the video up here where we talk about the deficiencies of Bitcoin as a currency / legal tender / reserve currency, whatever you want to use.
Yeah.
But yeah, even if you were to change the value into sats instead of Bitcoin, it's still going to be complicated, right? Buying, your cabbage can one day be 2 sats, and then next day is 2.5 sats.
It's called inflation.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be because of inflation, but it would be because of the volatility of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we still live in a dollar-denominated world because dollars are stable, right? They're not stable from an inflationary perspective, but stable in the value, right? 1 ringgit, I put it in my wallet, tomorrow I take out, it's still 1 ringgit.
Yeah.
Right? And also the growth and the explosion of different stable coins is kind of proof of that. In fact, many crypto like OGs, right, they're not very fond of stable coins because it's very anti.
Yeah, it goes against the whole thesis or the whole idea of Bitcoin.
I mean, it's
crypto,
tying
right?
an asset to fiat, which is the enemy of Bitcoin, right?
Exactly, yeah. So, MJ, what do you think? We talk about it from the perspective of the government and ourselves as outsiders. But do you think merchants would be open to or happy to hear this news, or would they start using Bitcoin as some form of payment themselves?
From what I see, I don't think so. Bitcoin has been around for 12 years. I think, touch and go has been more effective than Bitcoin as pure usage, right? Even in places like, Japan and Korea, I'm sure they have more crypto adoption, especially Korea. But they still want to rely on something more stable, right? If you're a merchant and you collect in Bitcoin, then your cash is fluctuating. Yeah, if it goes up, fantastic, right? You're not complaining, obviously. But if it goes down, then it's like, well, I work so hard. Like, imagine I plan the budget. Let's say I'm selling coffee, right? I source the beans. I pay the people who make the coffee and all that. I have this budget. I need to make a margin. And then once I receive the Bitcoin drops 50%, my margin is gone. Right?
Yeah.
So that, I think adoption is going to be challenging. And actually, I'll share an anecdote, which is, I follow this guy on Twitter. And he's anti-crypto, but I think his story is quite apt. So he stays in Phuket, and he goes out drinking every now and then. And then recently, because of the Russia-Ukraine war, people a lot of Russians actually travel to Phuket. People around the world travel to Phuket very often. They are now receiving actually, or rather, they're putting right in front of their bars saying that we do not accept any form of payments from the following banks or credit card, and all of them were Russian related.
That's insane.
So then the Russians are like kind of like pissed and all that, but then they say, okay, fine, how about Bitcoin? And apparently they're not even accepting Bitcoin.
wow.
Yeah. So they won't even accept Bitcoin, only Thai baht or US dollars or whatever.
Okay.
So unfortunately, the adoption of Bitcoin, I don't think is moving as fast as people would like to. And that's the role of stable coins actually. But that's a separate discussion.
Yep, exactly. All right. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. There's a better, clearer picture on what this actually means when we say Malaysia might be adopting crypto as legal tender.
Yeah, and I also want to add something unique I discovered about Malaysian politics and all this regulation. We tend to think of Malaysians tend to think of the regulators and all that as slow, non-proactive, and there's a case to be made for that. But one thing unique about Malaysian, from where I sit, is that actually they will move once we move, the regulators. Meaning, we are actually the one, the rakyat lah, saying, no, we like this. And as we were discussing yesterday, right, for this video, we need to present a situation for Bank Negara, reputation-wise, or SC, reputation-wise, where it is riskier to not approve it as legal tender. And how that happens is if basic things like the merchants start accepting Bitcoin. If 2 out of every 3 merchant in Malaysia accepts Bitcoin, whether the Bank Negara governor likes it or not, whether he thinks it's a good idea or not, he will be very compelled to accept it as legal tender because everybody accepts it. If everybody accepts seashells as legal tender, Bank Negara will most probably say, yeah, it is legal tender. So one thing to take note is that actually the merchants need to use it, and if the merchants don't bother using it, then there's no hope.
Somewhat like do first, seek forgiveness later, or take action first, seek approval later, per se.
Yeah. First they fight you, then they join you.
Nice one. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed the video today. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. See you in the next video.